July 20th, 1969. The world watched as Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface. But what if he never left Earth? What if the most iconic moment in human history was staged, meticulously directed, produced, and broadcast, all from a soundstage? This is the moon landing conspiracy. At the height of the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a battle not just for political power, but for technological superiority. The space race became the ultimate battleground, and the moon was the trophy. After a series of costly space missions and several public failures, the US suddenly claimed victory by landing Apollo 11 on the moon. It was a moment of triumph, but almost immediately, some began to ask, was it all too perfect? Let's examine the evidence. First, the footage. One of the most cited anomalies is the absence of stars in any photos or video footage. Critics argue that, without an atmosphere, stars should be even more visible on the moon, yet not a single star is seen. NASA claims that the camera settings used to capture the brightly lit astronauts weren't sensitive enough to pick up the dim starlight. Then there's the American flag. In the video, it appears to ripple, as if being blown by wind. But there's no atmosphere on the moon, and therefore no wind. NASA's explanation is that the flag was rigged with a horizontal rod and rippled due to the twisting motion when being planted into the ground. Still, to many, it's suspicious. Another issue lies in the shadows. In several photographs, shadows appear to fall in different directions, suggesting multiple light sources. On Earth, that would indicate artificial lighting, like what you'd find on a film set. NASA argues that the uneven surface of the moon caused light to scatter and reflect in strange ways. Next, the Van Allen radiation belt. To reach the moon, Apollo 11 had to pass through this zone of intense radiation. Conspiracists claim the spacecraft wasn't equipped with enough shielding to protect the astronauts. NASA maintains that the mission was carefully planned to avoid prolonged exposure, minimizing the risks. And then there's the audio. The communication between Houston and the astronauts is oddly clear. Some say suspiciously so. Others question the delay, or lack thereof, in the transmissions. Shouldn't a signal traveling nearly 240,000 miles experience more noticeable lag? Now, let's talk about Stanley Kubrick. In 1968, Kubrick released 2001, A Space Odyssey, a groundbreaking film that revolutionized space visuals. Just 1 year later, the moon landing is broadcast, flawlessly. Some believe Kubrick was recruited by the US government to help stage the moon footage. They point to strange symbolism in his later film The Shining, claiming it contains hidden confessions. The Apollo 11 sweater worn by young Danny. The room toothsheet allegedly referring to the 2,000-mile distance to the moon. While these claims are speculative, the theory persists that the moon landing was the greatest cinematic illusion ever pulled off. NASA, of course, denies everything. They say the photos and videos have been studied by independent experts worldwide. Moon rocks have been analyzed and authenticated by scientists in other countries. They argue that the complexity of the mission and sheer number of people involved make a hoax impossible to maintain. Still, there are troubling facts. Much of the original telemetry data from the mission is missing, lost, or recorded over. Some of the original videotapes were inexplicably erased. And even insiders like Bill Kaysing, a former NASA contractor, publicly claimed the landing was faked. The Soviets, locked in a bitter rivalry with the US, had every incentive to expose a hoax. But they never did. Was that because the landing was real? Or because they too had secrets to hide? So what's more unbelievable? That we landed on the moon using 1960s technology and computers less powerful than a modern phone. Or that it was all staged to win a war of perception. The moon landing remains one of the most celebrated achievements in human history. But it may also be the most elaborate illusion the world has ever seen. You decide.